On October 16th, 2014, a team from Poland known as Destructive Creations released a trailer for a game called Hatred. The trailer features black and white gritty footage of an unnamed character known only as the antagonist, as he prepares for what he describes as his genocide crusade, an attempt to fulfill his dream of having a violent death after he takes as many lives as possible. The trailer is packed with graphic footage of different attacks and executions performed by the antagonist, sometimes on police, but mostly on innocent civilians. The game was intended to be a comment piece on the current trend of political correctness that was sweeping the game industry, and according to the CEO of Destructive Creations, was intended to be more of an art piece. So while they expected a certain amount of pushback, they ended up receiving way more than they had intended as news outlets began to pick up the story. Many would allegedly call for the game to be banned. Unreal Engine, the engine the game was developed on, would reach out to Destructive Creations and ask them to remove their logo from the trailer. And on December 15th, 2014, the game would be removed from Steam's Greenlight program, a defunct system, and the only way for an indie developer to get their game listed on Steam at the time. Things would only get worse, however, as Hatred would receive an AO rating from the ESRB board, making it the third game ever to receive the rating for non-sexual content, effectively preventing it from being sold in retail stores in the US and streamed on Twitch. Despite the controversy, however, in the following days, the game would return to Steam, and Gabe Newell, founder and CEO of Valve and Steam, would apologize to the developers, at which point it would become the most upvoted game on the platform. But despite the drama and notoriety, the game would ultimately be released on June 1st, 2015, to mediocre reviews. On the subject of games that are considered art, you may not expect to hear the words Super Columbine Massacre RPG, but on April 20th, 2005, the 6th anniversary of the massacre in Columbine, Colorado, Danny Ladone released a game he had secretly been working on, which would end up being a Final Fantasy-esque recreation of the events of that day, one that would place the player in the shoes of the assailants. The game is offensive and considered by many to be in poor taste, but a lot of developers would actually back Danny, who initially sought to release the game anonymously, stating some variation of dislike for the overall subject matter, but understanding of his true motives, art through controversy. However, it is believed by many that CMRPG would ultimately be the inspiration for the, at the time, 21-year-old Australian developer Ryan Lambourne to make and release VTech Rampage on May 12, 2007, a top-down recreation of the events of the massacre at Virginia Tech, released only 3 weeks after the attack took place. After receiving calls to take the game down, however, Ryan Lambourne would make a statement. If he received $1,000 in donations, he would take the game down from Newgrounds, an online game platform. If he received $2,000, he would take it down from his own website. And if he received $3,000, he would issue an apology. He would later retract these offers and stated that it was only intended to be a joke, and said he never expected anyone to send money, and claims no one had. Lambourne would go on to create another game entitled The Slaying of Sandy Hook Elementary, based on just that. However, this one, he claims, was to spread awareness of gun control, even sharing a link to the NRA's website within it, something they would directly email him about. He would claim that the NRA Assistant General Counsel Michael Blaz would demand the removal, to which Lambourne would tweet, "I regret to inform the NRA, it's impossible to undo what's been done," as well as some other stuff. But unlike Danny, who to the best of my knowledge never made another game, Ryan would make several more, even some that are not outwardly offensive, like Social Interaction Trainer, which would be played by the likes of Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, Corey Kenshin, Game Grumps, and more, racking up millions of views. VTech Massacre is still available to play today on Newgrounds, but due to his Adobe Flash development, I could not immediately find a working link to the Sandy Hook game off Lambourne's website. But truth be told, I didn't look that hard. And speaking of replicating tragic events, in 2004, Traffic Games released what was said to be an extremely realistic game, allowing the player to simulate the 1963 assassination of former US President John F. Kennedy. As far as I can tell, this was the company's only game, but was developed in just 6 months by a team of 10 industry veterans, including Grand Theft Auto, Killzone, and Carmageddon developers, all led by Kirk Ewing, creative director of 2002's State of Emergency. The team had allegedly spent months studying the assassination in an attempt to make the simulation as accurate as possible and disprove conspiracies, citing Lee Harvey Oswald's inability to have acted single-handedly. A bit of a leap from the team's original idea of a realistic simulation of the Apollo 11 moon landing. In the game, the player is tasked with replicating the events that unfold as accurately as possible, complete with needing to take 3 shots, all hitting or not hitting the target as they had in real life. On November 19, 2004, Traffic Games would allegedly send a letter to John F. Kennedy's brother, then Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy, and inform him of the game's development. David Smith, the spokesman for the senator, would call it despicable. 2 days later, on the 21st, Traffic Games would announce development to the world, and only 1 day later, release the game. The game was only intended to be available for 3 months, but the team behind it would still end up holding a month-long competition, claiming the player with the most accurate score could win up to $100,000. The final amount depending on the game's overall revenue. But in the end, and perhaps also disturbing to hear, the contest would be won by somebody in Paris who was only 16 years old at the time. Although I can't find credible info as to how much the game had made, the boy would allegedly end up receiving $10,712. True to their word, the game is not available for purchase anywhere, but it has found its way to abandonware sites in which you can download pirated copies of games from defunct developers. Despite not being outwardly banned, it of course has received a lot of criticism from politicians, some of whom have used it as an example to further their crusade against the game industry, news outlets, and the general public alike. Night Trap is what some, like Wikipedia, call an interactive movie, and only one of 2 games from this list that I have played myself. Okay, yes, I tried Hatred while writing this script. Utilizing VHS technology, which is a very odd sentence, Night Trap depicts a teenage girl's slumber party as seen through security footage as it is monitored by SCAT agents who are attempting to stop the girls from being attacked and killed by vampiric-like creatures by means of triggering traps around the house. I know we're all programmed to jump at certain words and ideas like monitoring a teenage girl's slumber party, but in my opinion, the game is pretty tame, even for 1992, and does not contain any overly graphic, violent, or sexual elements. In fact, the game was developed alongside Hasbro, and even went through several changes to ensure that, even going as far as to show a fictional device used to extract blood instead of, say, vampire fangs, all part of Hasbro's non-reproducible violence requirements. I mean, they weren't even allowed to call the enemies vampires, instead dubbing them augurs. So how can this go so controversial? Well, on December 9th, 1993, the United States Senate would hold a hearing on video game violence, in which they would highlight Night Trap for 2 reasons. The first being the player's ability, although against the intent of the game, to trigger traps that would capture the tenants of the house instead of the augurs, and this one scene from the game that depicts a woman in a nightgown who could be surrounded and presumably killed by augurs. The Senate believes this to be an example of over-sexualization and promoting violence against women. They would display it alongside the ultra-violent and gory Mortal Kombat from the same year. As a result of the hearing, the game would sell 50,000 copies the following week, but ultimately be pulled from shelves by Toys R Us and KB Toys only 2 weeks before Christmas, and later pulled from the market altogether by Sega in early 1994. Mortal Kombat would not be taken off shelves. This hearing would also lead to the creation of the Entertainment Software Rating Board, or ESRB in America, a system that is still in place today, and the reason that games like Hatred can never be sold in retail stores. So if you ever wondered why those little letters are on your game case, think Night Trap. Since the removal by Sega, the game would be ported to several other systems, most recently the Nintendo Switch in 2018. As an example of the changes in public perception, a 25th anniversary of Night Trap would be released in 2017 and would be given a T rating by the ESRB, meaning it is suitable to be played by teenagers aged 13 and older. Unfortunately, I may have saved the worst for last, as I'm not intending to even say the name of the final game without censoring it, and that's Play. A Japanese game developed by infamous Japanese adult game developer Illusion, a company that has produced roughly 70 titles between 1993 and the company's closure on July 14th, 2023. A bit of a warning though, because while some of these entries on this list may have been questionably bad, this one is 100% without a doubt bad. Released in 2006, this game is a 3D eroge following a serial offender who gets caught harassing women on a train and is subsequently arrested. However, thanks to being the son of a prominent politician, he is released from custody and begins stalking, and as the name suggests, assaulting the family of the girl who got him arrested. This includes the girl's 42-year-old mother, the girl herself who is 17, and the girl's younger sister who is only 12 years old. I won't be going into the extremely disturbing things this game allegedly depicts. But in 2009, 3 years after its release, it caught the attention of British Parliament after it was discovered the game could be purchased off Amazon, despite not being officially distributed outside of Japan. The game, although not banned in the UK, would be removed from Amazon and banned in Australia and Argentina, making it the only game to ever be banned in the latter. In an interesting turn of events, the game would also be restricted by the Ethics Organization of Computer Software, or EOCS, Japan's version of the ESRB, effectively banning the game from sale in Japan. Allegedly, Illusion was confused by this decision, as they claimed it had initially been released within allowance of Japanese law and was not officially sold outside of Japan, but would later remove all mention of the game from their website. Despite all development and sales supposedly being stopped on August 18, 2023, several games by Illusion can still be found and purchased online, including from game retailers like Steam. I've made no effort to find this game online, and I recommend you do the same. Running this channel has already put me on enough lists. And those are 5 banned games, more or less. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it to help the algorithm, and subscribe to see more content like it. And if you'd like to see something similar, why not check out this video where I talk about 5 banned videos you aren't allowed to watch. I'll see you next time.